Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why. This week we have Parsha Shelach. I want to begin this video with a little bit of a parable, a little bit of a story. Imagine you are working for the most powerful man in the world. You want to call it the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Do you want to call it Bill Gates? A very rich, very powerful person, okay? And you're working for them. And let's say that this person asks you to do a task. You're working for Barack Obama, and Barack Obama says, you know what, Bob, can you go down the street and buy me a hamburger? Keep the receipt and I'll pay you back. And let's say that you go across the street, you buy the hamburger, and you bring back the receipt. But let's say that you are just so overcome with fear that he's not really going to pay you back. That you really think that this guy who's so rich and so powerful, the guy who, is paying you a huge salary, the guy who's, bought you a car and this fancy condo and all this and that, this is a guy who's not going to pay you back for a $3 hamburger. Obviously, it's a pretty ridiculous statement. And it's not a perfect parallel, but I think this is a really, really good headspace to put ourselves into for this Parsha. This Parsha, we have God, the same God who took the Jewish people out of Egypt, brought them to the foot of Mount Sinai, and has let them survive in the desert. The same God asks 12 spies to go into the land of Israel to evaluate it before the Jews go in later. 10 of the 12 spies come back saying, it's horrible, there's no way we can ever defeat the native inhabitants there, it's a lost cause. Only 2 of the 10 spies, Joshua and Caleb or Kalev, come back with a positive report. Okay? Now, one verse specifically I want to address, talking about Caleb, one of the 2 spies who actually came back with a positive report. In the book of Numbers, which is what we're reading, chapter 14:24, God is saying, "But my servant Caleb, because a different spirit was with him, and he followed me wholeheartedly, I shall bring him into the land, into Israel, to which he came, and his offspring shall possess it." I'll say that again. But Caleb, this servant, or this spy who came back with a positive report, because of a different spirit was with him, and he followed me totally, I will bring him into the land. Excuse me. This means basically that Caleb, because he brought back that positive report, he was given, and his ancestors, the land of Hebron. Right? And the reason, because when he came into the land, he prayed in Hebron, the cave of the patriarchs, that the Jewish people should be successful in taking back the land. Fine. There's a whole number of ideas here. Why specifically was Caleb singled out to have this land and not Joshua, the other guy who came back with a positive report? And secondly, what is this different spirit that they're talking about here? They say he came back with a different spirit. Long story short, what makes Caleb so remarkable, the reason he had this different spirit, and the reason he had such a huge, remarkable place named that he was, Hebron for his ancestors, is that this different spirit that was with him, according to the various Kabbalists, this was the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. What he had was the same thing that the other 10 spies had. This, spirit within him was the evil inclination. This inclination came to him and told him, essentially this was his, whatever you want to call it, evil inclination, you want to call it his skepticism, saying that the land cannot be ours. I don't care that God brought us out of Egypt. I don't care that God brought us to Sinai. It can't possibly be ours. But the fact that he could overcome that, the fact that he, despite that different spirit, managed to nonetheless follow God wholeheartedly and come back with a positive report, he was allowed to basically have the land of Hebron for his descendants. Joshua, however, although doing the same, fantastic mitzvah of coming back with the same positive report, he simply didn't have that same battle to fight. He didn't have that same skepticism that he had to fight the same way Caleb fought. So basically, what the lesson here we have is that Caleb, despite doing the exact same thing as Joshua, gets so much greater reward simply the fact that he had to actually fight his natural inclination. So the natural, I think, lesson for us to take away from this is that it's not necessarily what we do in life where we're evaluated, what we're evaluated is where we see the biggest challenges. In other words, if we find a challenge with, let's say, putting on tefillin or tzitzit if you're a guy, doing that, even though most other people, 90% of other Jews might think it's not a problem at all. But for you, if that is really, really, really a challenge, if you can overcome that, that is an incredible, incredible goal you have overcome. That is an individual statement everybody needs to stop and evaluate for themselves. But the lesson that we should take away from this is to stop and think for ourselves, what challenges do I find really challenging, really difficult to overcome, really, difficult to wrap my head around? Is it a particular mitzvah? Is it not speaking gossip or lashon hara? Is it honoring mother and father? Is it giving time to reach out to other Jews? Whatever it is, whatever these difficult things that we know we should be doing and nevertheless we find difficult to do, those are the things we should put the most effort in. Why? Not because God wishes to tempt us and make us suffer, but contrary. If we find mitzvah A to be difficult and we work hard at that and we overcome that, that is infinitely greater, and the reward we receive is infinitely greater than if we're doing something and it's not difficult at all. So the lesson again for the takeaway lesson from the Parsha is Caleb receives such a great reward for coming back with a positive report, whereas Joshua didn't receive this huge reward, is because Caleb had this Yetzer Hara. He had this incredible drive to come back with a negative report. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see it naturally the way Joshua saw it. But because he could overcome that, that is the reason his entire descendants could have the land of Hebron. So again, the take-home message for us is that the most important mitzvahs and the most important things that we should address are the ones that we find the hardest, because those are the ones we're going to get the greatest reward for. Best wishes, Shabbat Shalom, God bless.